Good afternoon. Welcome to this much-anticipated event, a debate and discussion with Christopher Hitchens and Alister McGrath on the topic, Poison or Cure? Religious Belief in the Modern World. My name is Tom Banchoff. I'm director of the Berkeley Center for Religion, Peace, and World Affairs here at Georgetown, and the co-convener of this event, along with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. The Berkeley Center is part of a university-wide effort to make Georgetown a global leader in the interdisciplinary study of religion and in the promotion of interreligious understanding. This effort builds off our academic strengths, our location here in Washington, D.C., our international networks, and Georgetown's Catholic and Jesuit identity, an identity that embraces dialogue with other faith traditions and with the wider secular world. What brings us together today is, of course, religious secular debate or dialogue. From one perspective, a kind of intellectual combat. From another perspective, a shared quest for truth, marked by a willingness on both sides to ask and to attempt to answer very big questions. And I can think of no question bigger than the one on your program today. I anticipate an engaging conversation, and I have a sneaking suspicion it will be entertaining as well. We have a lot to look forward to, and with that I would like to turn it over to Michael Cromarty, Vice President of the Ethics and Public Policy Center, and the real driver behind tonight's event. Michael, thank you for bringing us together. I know we all look forward to a stimulating conversation.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to begin by saying thank you to President DeGioia of this wonderful university for allowing us to have this event in this beautiful setting in Gaston Hall. I'm also grateful to Tom and his staff for all their help and work in making this event possible and to co-host it with the Ethics and Public Policy Center. Now, on the back page of your program, you'll see the names of some individuals and some foundations who helped make this event possible. We, of course, are very grateful for their generous support. I'd like to say a few words also about our format. Mr. Hitchens will go first for 15 or 20 minutes, and then be followed by Professor McGrath, who will then have the same amount of time. Then Mr. Hitchens will then have 8 to 10 minutes for rebuttal, and then he'll be followed by Professor McGrath for 8 or 10 minutes. The rebuttals will occur, their presentations will occur from here. The rebuttals will occur from the seats. That way I can moderate. We'll then open it up to questions from the audience, and the way we're going to do that is the following. I believe all of you have been given, I hope, 3x5 cards to write your questions on. They'll be collected by the ushers, and then I will read the questions. Now, there are almost 800 people here. I don't think we'll get to all 800, but we will get to, I hope, a significant amount of them. Now, I will not take time just now to give an extensive introduction of our speakers because you have in your brochure elaborate biographies of each of these gentlemen. And of course, I know you're here because you know their reputations, and that's why you've come. So I would like to begin my introduction of Christopher Hitchens this way, by calling your attention to this cartoon. In an issue this past June, the New Yorker magazine ran the following cartoon. I'll describe it to you. A woman, the wife is sitting on the couch, reading, and husband is walking in the door, and just as he's coming in the front door, a bolt of lightning is striking him right in the back. And the wife says, "I begged you not to buy that book by Christopher Hitchens." Ladies and gentlemen, he bought the book, and so have many others. Christopher's book, God Is Not Great, has been on the New York Times bestseller list now for, I think, over 20 weeks. In introducing Christopher Hitchens, I should at least mention what some others have said about him and his gifts. Here's the London Observer, who has said, he is one of the most prolific as well as brilliant journalists of our time. Or the Los Angeles Times has said this, he is a political and literary journalist extraordinaire. And the New Yorker magazine has said, He is an intellectual willing to show his teeth in the cause of righteousness. And finally, Christopher, you would be interested to know that our mutual friend, the political philosopher Peter Berkowitz, who's here tonight, recently said this about you. Whether you agree or disagree with what he says or writes, Christopher is utterly incapable of ever being boring. Christopher, thank you for coming. We trust you will not be boring.
Well, thank you, Georgetown. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for coming. Thank you, Michael, for that suspiciously terse introduction, which of all the introductions I've heard to myself is certainly the most recent. Thank you seriously to the Ethics and Public Policy Center for your work, for conceiving this idea, for encouraging me to do it, for bringing us Dr. McGrath all the way from our common alma mater of Oxford, and for the regular seminars that you may not know that Michael does all the time on these matters of faith versus reason, which is, after all, the ground on which we're met this evening. I always come before events like this with antagonists like Dr. McGrath with a slight sense, a very slight sense, hope it doesn't sound self-pitying, of inequality. My views are, if I say it for myself, tolerably well advertised. And if they're not, it's partly your fault. Because what I say is fairly intelligible, very plainly stated. You know what I think, if you care to find out. When I debate with Jews and Muslims and Christians, I very often find, I say, well, do you really believe there was a virgin birth? Do you really believe in a Genesis creation? Do you really believe in bodily resurrection? And I get a sort of Monty Python reply. Well, there's a little bit of metaphorical, really. I'm not sure, and I'm going to find out, I'm determined to find out this evening, which line on this my antagonist does take. And I want you to notice, and I want you to test him on it. Because I think it's fair. And I'm going to talk to him and to you as if he did represent the Christian faith. I can't do all three monotheisms tonight. I may get a whack at the other two in the course of the discussion. I can only really do his. And I'm going to assume that it means something to him and that it's not just a humanist metaphysics. And I think I'm entitled to that assumption. The main thing I want to dispute this evening, because I'm either drowning in time with 20 minutes, it's either too much or too little, is this. You hear it very often said by people of a vague faith that, well, it may not be the case that religion is metaphysically true. Its figures and its stories may be legendary or dwell on the edge of myth, prehistoric. Its truth claims may be laughable. We have better explanations for the origins both of our cosmos and our species now, so much better so, in fact, that had they been available to begin with, religion would never have taken root. No one would now go back to the stage when we didn't have any real philosophy. We only had mythology. When we thought we lived on a flat planet, or when we thought that our planet was circulated by the sun instead of the other way around, when we didn't know there were microorganisms as part of creation and that they were more powerful than us and had dominion over us rather than we them, when we were fearful, the infancy of our species, we wouldn't have taken up theism if we'd known now what we did then. But allow for all that. Allow for all that. You still have to credit religion with being the source of ethics and morals. Where would we get these from if it weren't for faith? I think if, in the time I've got, I think that's the position I most want to undermine. I don't believe that it's true that religion is moral or ethical. I certainly don't believe, of course, that any of its explanations about the origin of our species or the cosmos or its ultimate destiny are true either. In fact, I think most of these have been conclusively, utterly disproven.